Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, OnScreen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Roerig.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to OnScreen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today we have a few trailers to go over. We have a game-specific Nintendo Direct to talk about. And, in full spoilers, we are going to be talking about Season 5 of What We Do in the Shadows. But first off, let's kick things off with our On the Horizon segment.
On the horizon.
On the Horizon is where we talk about what's coming up in the next week or so. And we're going to start things off with The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, which comes out on Sunday, September 10th on AMC. This should just be called The Walking Dead of Us.
Yeah.
Lone Wolf and Dead.
Like that. Yeah.
But yeah, we talked about the trailer for this when they did a bunch of stuff at Comic-Con, I believe. And I don't know if I'm going to watch this. Probably not. Probably not going to watch this, but it's a big show, so I thought it needed to be mentioned.
Yeah, for sure.
Then on Wednesday, September 13th, The Morning Show returns to Apple TV+. Again, not going to watch that because I don't have Apple TV+. And then on Thursday, September 14th, Baten and Kaitos 1 and 2 HD Remastered are coming to Nintendo Switch because I do not have enough RPGs to play on my Nintendo Switch, apparently. So they said, here's 2 more. And then I passed out. Mortal Kombat 1, the remake, Premium Edition, is coming out also on Thursday, September 14th to PS5, Xbox Series X, PC, and Switch. I believe this is coming out if you pay more, you get it earlier. I don't know how that works out, but apparently this is the Premium Edition and the other version of the game comes out later, like a week later or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you pay to play earlier now?
Are you talking about like early access?
No, it's not early access. It's like literally you have to buy the Premium Edition, which I think maybe it includes the DLC or something like that, but it also one of the benefits is you get it like a week early.
Yeah, so you early access.
Yeah, but not like in the way of like say Steam does like early access.
No, I mean in the way of like you get to play the
early
game sooner than everybody else who doesn't buy the Premium Edition.
Yeah, that's just weird. I'm not a big fan of that strategy.
Starfield did that. I agree. I'm not at all a fan of that. I think it's scummy. I think it's just a way to like get more money out of people by leaning into their people's impatience and FOMO.
Yeah.
I believe when a game is made available to the general public, that is the release date. It's not an early release. You made the game available to everybody willing to pay for the Premium Edition. That is the release.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, the way Steam does it is okay because that's basically like opening up beta testing too.
Yeah, that's different. You're getting to play like an incomplete version of the game way before the game actually released. They did that with Baldur's Gate, where like Baldur's Gate up until last month was only chapter 1. So, I mean, that's fine. Like, that's a completely different thing. But yeah, like this whole thing is like, oh yeah, we finished the game. We're going to let you play it early if you give us more money. It's like, yeah, no.
That's scummy.
Yeah.
Then on Friday, September 15th, we have 2 movies coming out to movie theaters. A Haunting in Venice, which is the new Poirot detective movie, and The Inventor, which is an animated movie about Leonardo da Vinci. And those are both coming out again on Friday, September 15th to theaters. And that is it for our On the Horizon segment. And now let's move on to On Beat. We're going to start off talking about the trailers, and then after that, we're going to talk about Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which had a Direct and a Treehouse Live. So we'll talk about, what we learned about that game in those events. But we're going to start things off with some trailers. First one we got is Bodies. This is a British detective series that looks like it's going to be taking place in like 4 different time periods.
Yeah.
Including the future.
And apparently, like, the same body has appeared in every time period.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like some weird time travel mystery or something. I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird concept, but it's an intriguing concept.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got me interested. I looked at it and I said, okay.
Speaking of time travel and a very similar music used to promote the trailer, I watched these back to back and was like, wow, it's like the same song.
Yeah.
We also got a trailer for Loki. This is our new, it's still a teaser, I think, but it's the
it's just
more
a
recent
teaser.
one.
But
But
I don't think like there's much new in this that they haven't showed in the previous trailer.
yeah, but it's like, it's much better cut, I think. I think this
Yeah.
has me much more excited for Loki than the past trailer did.
Right, yeah.
And it has that weird music that was in the last trailer.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it looks good. Looking forward to it. Loki is one of the better Marvel shows that they've released.
Mhm.
So I'm looking forward to it. Weirdly enough, I'm looking forward to more banter between
Owen
Loki
Wilson and Tom Hiddleston.
Yes. Yeah.
And you have to add Key in now too, that he's on the show.
Yes.
But yeah, Loki looking good, and I think it's a really good trailer, actually. Like I said, the first trailer didn't really do much to excite me besides the fact that I wanted more Loki and that Key was in it. So I was like, okay, that's cool. And then this trailer actually made me excited to watch it. And it's like, it's not necessarily like new information. It's just the way it was cut and put together just really amped up the excitement for me. So I'm looking forward to season 2 of Loki. Then we got a trailer for No One Will Save You, which starts off as if it's like a home invasion story and then quickly delves into something that looks like aliens or supernatural in some way and gets kind of creepy. What did you think of this trailer?
Oh yeah, it looks cool. Like, this looks fantastic. Straight horror. I will say, like, this is one of the better trailers for a film I watched because the way they unfurl and unfold it over the course of the trailer is like really cool. At the beginning, like, they set up like, oh yeah, this is like a home invasion scenario. So you get that, you get like, oh, you know, what is it? And kind of like the wonder of, okay, what are we dealing with here? What's this movie? And like, then like all the weird stuff starts happening and you're like, okay, is this like a ghost movie? Supernatural? And then it gets to the end and it's like, it's very clearly like an alien invasion story. And
Yeah.
I mean, but it's so well done as a trailer. It looks like a good movie. It's got me interested for sure.
I think one of the things I liked about it is I'm not really into like ghost story type stuff. It kind of follows the same formula. And so I wasn't all excited about that. But then like when she left her house after the attempted invasion moment or whatever.
Yeah.
And you see her going down the street and there's like a truck overturned and she goes
can
by
see
like
the,
her
like,
neighbor's house and there's something wrong with them.
Like the world is clearly like messed up, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And that made it like exciting to me. That was like, oh, okay, there's like more going on here than just, is she being haunted? Is she not being haunted? Like that kind of thing is kind of boring to me. And having it be like something that's more like world affecting made it a more interesting trailer for me.
Yeah.
Then lastly, we got a trailer for Gen V. This is the next trailer for this. We get a little bit more of an idea of what's going on in this story this time. Before it was more like always just, oh, it's in the world of the boys. And there's some like heroes
like,
learning at this school. And that's kind of all we really knew.
And it's like all shock value moments. Like, look at all the gore.
Yeah.
This kind of explains more of like the plot and stuff to it. I don't know. I'm still ambivalent towards it. I'll check it out for sure, but like, I don't know, like I'm not completely like blown away by what I'm seeing.
We did get one thing that we didn't have from before is that we see at least 2 characters from the boys that we see in this trailer now. One being the politician character and the other being, Ashley.
Yeah.
Who's now, I guess the head of
She's like
Vought now? I don't know.
She's like the quote unquote CEO of Vought. Like,
she was like a secretary, I think, in the first season, and now she's like the CEO. But we see we see the 2 of those characters. We also got a lot more of Clancy Brown, where we just kind of got an image of him. It was the first shot in the last trailer, and that was it. Like with no explanation, nothing else. And here we have we get some dialogue from him, and we see a bit more of him to see how he's involved in the story. It still seems kind of small. I'm wondering if he's going to be like a character that dies off early in the series or something.
That's
why they're not showing a lot.
I could see that. I could see, like, that character at least, like, not making it through season 1.
Yeah. Or even, like, dying at the end of the first episode or something kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
It could totally be that kind of, like, a cameo kind of role.
Oh, yeah. The one, like, yeah, where they really hype up, like, we have this recognizable actor, like, in a major role, and then they kill him off in the first episode.
Yeah. I could totally see them doing that. We got a little bit of the interactions between the characters this time where you can see there's some actual, like, kind of friendships going there. There seems to be something evil happening in the woods of the school. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, it's
like some experimentation on suits.
It's not literally the woods. It's like a facility.
Yeah.
Called the woods. Yeah.
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 Which I think it might be buried in the actual woods. Like the entrance to it might be in the woods.
Yeah, it might be. I don't know. Yeah.
It reminds me of in Buffy the Vampire Slayer season 4 with the compound that was underneath the college or whatever.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. And the one with, like, Adam, like, as, like, the villain.
Yeah.
I did not like that season. It's like, I thought the villain was goofy, and they tried giving Buffy, like, a new love interest. It was, like, some doofy guy. Like, I don't know.
I'm liking it more. I'm watching a reaction series, and they're going through it. And I'm liking it more this time, watching it that way, than I did when I originally watched it. So maybe, like, with hindsight, it's better. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe when I do, like, a rewatch, I'll have a better opinion of it.
Yeah, but that's Gen V. It looks okay. I'm still kind of upset because there's a superheroes in college series that I absolutely love, and I really wish that would get a TV series, and it just feels like it'll never get one now.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know what you're talking about, but yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it for our trailers. And next up, we have Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which had both a direct and a Treehouse Live. I watched some of the Treehouse Live. You said you didn't watch it at all. You'd already kind of made up your mind after the direct. You got what you needed. I don't
really watch the Treehouse Lives when they do them, like...
Too much information?
Yeah, I just don't need to sit there and watch, like, people play through the game. It's fine. I got all the information I needed from the direct itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, that's just my take on it. But, I mean, man, does this game look incredible. And, like, the fact, like, they cram so many ideas into this game. It's insane.
Hearing them talk about the Wonder Star or Wonder Flower or whatever that thing is, and how it's every single time you encounter it, not in the same level, obviously. In the same level, it's only going to be the one time, but, like, each time you encounter in each different level, it's a completely different effect.
Yes. Yeah, something new happens, and, like, they're crazy. Like, the perspective shift one.
Yeah, that was really cool. Or it went to, like, a 2.5 top-down view perspective, but within the same borders as the side-scrolling one. That was really cool.
It looked like the same 2D scrolling level, except your character was now, like, on the wall.
Yeah, like on the negative space, yeah.
and you were, like, looking down at the character. It's insane. Like, I was like, wow, okay.
That was really cool. The rolling thing was really cool, where you become, like, kind of a spiked ball type thing and you're rolling around.
Yes.
That was really interesting. I think more than anything, that's what intrigued me, because when we saw the original trailer for it, we saw, like, oh, it makes the world move and stuff like that, and I'm like, is that just going to be like every time you hit that, it's just going to do that kind of effect every time? But when they were saying, like, it's going to be a completely different effect every time you encounter a new one of those, really has me excited, because it's just the idea of, like, oh, something completely random that you don't expect.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's intriguing to me, because like I said, when we first saw the trailer for it, like, I think a lot of people were going a bit hard on how different the game looked, and I'm like, to me, it still looks a lot like new Super Mario Brothers games. It just looks like they added a lot more flair. But the idea of, like, this star that can change the perspective, that can change the entire style of play, that's the thing, to me, more than anything, that differentiates it from the new series, which was pretty straightforward and plain in comparison.
Right, yeah, the new series was clearly designed to play up on nostalgia, and very successful at that, too, because, I mean, the game sold crazy amounts. They were, like, very safe like, this is a Mario game. You got your ice level and your lava level and you got your standard power-ups, and they didn't really go out of their way to do, like, anything, like, new.
Yeah.
Despite the name. The new was, like, the fact it was new levels and new graphic style on new consoles.
One thing that carries over from the new style to this that I'm not too fond of, and they gave reason for why they did it in the new series, and in this one it's just a little disappointing that it's still there, is that the characters, no matter how you choose, control like identically.
Yeah,
that's
I really
a little
wish,
disappointing.
Really wish it was like Super Mario Bros. 2, where they just kept the controls like that, where, like, Luigi is like...
Jumps higher.
Jumps higher, is a little more floaty. Toad is like the speedster, and like...
Peach has the slow descend.
Oh, yeah, or, Peach has like the floating. It's gonna be weird picking Peach or Daisy and like not being able to float. Like, that's just... Yeah. That's just like ingrained into me now from like that game. I get why they did that. They want, if you're playing multiplayer, they want everybody to have like an equal experience.
Yeah. It's really hard to balance when you make the characters different in a game. And a game that's so heavily based on level design, if you have one character that can jump a little higher and one that can jump a little further, that's gonna really play into the difficulty differences in playing that level with different characters.
Yeah, exactly.
So I understood it. That's what they referenced when they did the first new Super Mario Bros. Game and why they did that. But now, with this, it's a little disappointing because they're pushing for, wonder and doing things a little differently. The one area that kind of improves upon that and makes me kind of a little bit okay with the fact that it's still carrying that over is the badge system. Yeah. Because now you have a badge system which you can apply to any character that will change and modify the gameplay. So anybody can have the kind of Peach or, like floaty type mechanics in the jumping if you have the badge that gives you that.
Yes. So the badge is like, again, that's like an extra wrinkle to the formula. And again, why this is not just like a new Super Mario Brothers game. You can equip badges to your characters to get extra abilities in a level. You can only do like one badge per character per level, which is fine. I have no problem with that. I think obviously balance is important. Yeah, it's fantastic. And you've seen the headlines. The fact that like Tezuka said like they had an unlimited time frame with which to develop this game. There was no deadline. There was no like this has to be out this year.
Yeah, it's basically the kind of same narrative we heard about with Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah,
where they really took their time and really worked on it so that they could deliver something that kind of feels full featured and everything works and is polished at launch. And how that's such a huge differentiation between the way the current trends of the industry are right now, which is very much like just put it out and fix it later. So it's interesting that Nintendo's not only like doubling down on taking their time and getting it right on the first go, but they're not only doing that, but they're like advertising that now. Like it's part of the way they're talking about the experience rather than just something that they actually did, and it's interesting. It's creating like a division between the way other game development is done and the way Nintendo game development is done, which is really it's cool. It's one of the things I really like about Nintendo is that I was talking to my mom about this in general, like just the other day, that like I'm not a fan of homogeny. And when everybody was like, why can't Nintendo, when they did like the Wii and people were like, why can't Nintendo just do the same thing that like Sony and Microsoft are doing? And I'm like, then you'd have the HD triplets instead of the HD twins.
Also, those people went by the Nintendo system. They would still mock it for like, oh yeah, Mario's too kiddie. I want to play The Last of Us or Gears of War. And that's it. Like, I did this whining. Oh, why can't Nintendo make a modern system like Sony and Xbox? Because they did that. It was called the GameCube and very few people bought it.
But even more so than that, for me personally, it's just like, I like that somebody's doing something different, even if sometimes it doesn't work. Like, that's the risk, is sometimes if you do something different, it's not gonna work. And that can happen sometimes. I mean, that's the Virtual Boy. That's the Wii U. Sometimes it doesn't work as well as you'd hope it would. But I like that somebody's doing something different. There should be at least somebody in the industry doing something different, and that's Nintendo. They're the Willy Wonka of video games.
Yes.
In that sense, like you might have a few kids that drown in a chocolate lake, but but hey, you get everlasting gobstoppers out of it.
Oh
so
yeah, that's
all works.
Exactly. And that's why, like, when people keep bringing up, oh, Nintendo should, like, it hasn't come up in a while because, like, Switch is actually successful. But people keep, oh, Nintendo should abandon hardware and, like, make games for... Losing Nintendo as a hardware manufacturer would be an incredible loss, just because...
The entire industry, I think, yeah.
Yeah, just because, like, the unique hardware ideas they come up with.
Yeah, you need to, at least somebody needs to be challenging the status quo.
Yes.
And I'm glad that, like, Nintendo is a company that does that, even if sometimes it's a misfire. Like, at least somebody's doing something that's different, you know, that makes it important, in my opinion. But, yeah, like,
yes.
the push away from homogeny, I think, is something I'm very happy that I'm happy Nintendo's being a contrarian company compared to the others, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And to circle it back to Wonder here, like they said they had like over 200 ideas for this game. One of the interesting things is, Tezuka said in an interview with IGN that early in the development of Wonder, like, he challenged the team that they were not allowed to implement or add, like, things that were, like, already in Mario games. So, like, the Fire Flower and stuff like that, they could put in, and he said that was to challenge the team to come up with new ideas early in the development.
I think that's good. I think that's right. Like, a lot of people didn't like the game, but to derail our topic again, which I love doing.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't like the game, and they have their reasons for not liking it. But I remember when Metroid Other M was being made. The Metroid creator at Nintendo was talking about how he wanted the game to be something that you played with the Wii Remote sideways, and then you could move it the other way around. And one of the things that I think was really important about that even if you don't like that game, even if you hate that game, even if you think that game is like the ruination of the franchise, one thing that I think is important about what he was doing with the control ideas is that I hate it in a lot of modern games where there's no such thing as context in controls. It's just every single button does something different, even if it's only a tiny, minute difference. And like, what happened to the context-sensitive buttons that change what you do based on what you're in front of when you hit it? Like, we're moving away from that. Everything's about like, oh, you have to do this exact button combination to enact this exact thing. And it's just stupid. Like, it's so unintuitive in design. Right. And I always used to say around after Metroid Other M came out, and I read like an interview, you know, with Sakamoto about that. And I'm like, I really wish that developers would limit themselves to like, okay, I'm going to make this game, and all I'm going to allow myself access to is the control stick, the left control stick only, the left and right button and two face buttons, and that's it. That's all I'm going to allow myself access to. And then once you get far into designing the game with that in mind, then you start to go, okay, well now I can branch out, and this function that didn't work as well here, I'm going to give that its own button and do some, but kind of you know what I mean? Like, tackle it in that direction of saying like, let's limit what we're going to use to start with so that we can get the controls and everything to be as tight, as intuitive as possible. And then we can expand outward from there. And I really wish more developers would kind of take that into account.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
Regardless of what you think of the game itself, Metroid Other M. Personally, I liked it. Most people didn't.
Like, well, for what I hear from people, it's mostly like what people hate about it is like the story and especially like the characterization of Samus. I haven't heard too many people seem to generally like the actual gameplay. Yeah, it's just, I guess, like the story aspect is off-putting. I don't know, I haven't played that much of it to come to any conclusion, but that's one game, like, I do want to, like, go back to and, like, play, especially since, like, I made sure to purchase it on the Wii U, like, eShop, like, before they close that down, so I can easily download it to my Wii U. See, the Wii U is still good for something.
See, I could dive further into this, but I don't want to get too off topic. So.
No, yeah, this is getting off topic. I just want to go one little thing about Super Mario Wonder before we move on, and that's the issue, obviously the elephant in the room of Charles Martinet.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the literal elephant in the room.
Oh, yeah. There's that. But the thing about like Charles Martinet obviously not doing the voices in this game, and the question of who's replacing Charles Martinet, well, according to Doug Bowser, like, we're not going to know until we beat the game and see the credits, because Nintendo
Of course Bowser would say that.
Yeah, of course, right? Because apparently, like, Nintendo has no intentions to make any announcements as to who's voicing Mario now. He literally told IGN, like, you'll beat the game and see the credits and then you'll know.
Yeah. Which means it's Mel Gibson confirmed.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
They don't want to advertise it because he's canceled, and so they're gonna like pretend it isn't there until you've already beaten the game.
Yeah. Let's go.
Yeah, I think they just don't want that to be the focus of the game, you know? To be about who's going to be doing the voices, you know? They don't want that to be the focus.
Yeah.
I think some people are reading into it more. I think they're reading into it a lot more than they need to. Nintendo just doesn't want the focus to be on who's doing the voice on Mario, when that's kind of not that too terribly important in a Mario game.
And it's probably not going to be a name that anybody's going to like immediately recognize anyway. So it's like,
I don't know. A lot of people know who Mel Gibson is.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is what it is. Also, another, like, small tangent, like, Charles Martinet recently, I think was at some event, I think he was at PAX, and he was, like, doing, like, a Q&A, and he said, like, he doesn't know what being a Mario ambassador is. He says, we'll find out.
It just means he's going to be doing what he's doing when he's not recording dialogue.
Yeah.
He's going to be going to events and signing autographs and doing the voice for fans, and that's it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so that is Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and we'll talk about that more when that game comes out, or if other information is released. Probably not until the game comes out. I don't imagine there's really a lot else to cover on that game until it comes out.
Yeah, I think they covered everything. It's just obviously it's coming out next month. The marketing is full steam ahead for this game.
Will's already ordered his red Switch OLED.
Yeah.
His SWOLED.
I have 2 Switches. That's enough for me. It does look good. People complain because like, oh, it's just the red Switch. I don't know. Like I think like a monocolored red Switch, like with a red dock, looks gorgeous. I don't know.
I think it looks good. I like the red dock in particular. I also
I wish we could buy the dock separately.
And I wish Nintendo would do this more, where they like hide the little details. I like the little hidden Mario face and the hidden coins in the back. I like those kind of little touches, even though they're things that you never even actually see when you're looking at the system. I like little touches like that. Like, I had a Chromecast when the Chromecast first came out, and the serial number on the Chromecast, like the device number or whatever, was like H2G242, which stood for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy 42.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And that's what they used as their product number. Like that's, I like cool little touches like that.
That is like the nerdiest thing ever, but that's awesome.
Exactly. Like little touches like that I think they're valuable and they're good, you know? And
yeah.
One thing, if I had one complaint about the Switch, I think that after the Wii and the Wii U, they really narrowed down, like say the interface, for example, really made it very simple and straightforward, which in a sense is good because the Wii U was really slow when you were trying to get into the system. But, on the other hand, it's like, why don't we have like eShop music? And why don't we, you know what I mean? Like, these little things added so much flavor to the experience.
I do miss that.
Yeah. I always want them to do more of that. Every time, like, they show, like, oh, here's a new OLED model, and then on the back, there's, like, a barely noticeable design that's, like, a slightly different shade of, like, gray or something that's on the back, and you can barely tell it's even there unless you catch it the right light. I love that stuff. Like, it's just extra character, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, I'm happy they did that. Like, I like the whole idea of the hidden coins. That's really cool, you know? That's, like, a really, really cool touch, and I wish they would do that on more Nintendo stuff again. So let's hope Switch 2 has some like little cool hidden things like that. Like that's
yeah. Just I hope so. That'd be awesome.
Nintendo's best when they're having fun. But yeah, so that's it for our On Beat segment, and that leaves only full spoilers. This week on Full Spoilers, we're going to be talking about Season 5 of What We Do in the Shadows, including the best episode of Season 5, Pride Parade. But we're going to be talking about all 10 episodes. We're not going to go through each episode individually. We're just going to talk about kind of some of the overarching narratives and some of our favorite aspects of this season. Or least favorite if we happen to have those too. Who knows? Mm-hmm. So, just general impression right off the bat. What did you think of Season 5 of What We Do in the Shadows?
I thought it was a very strong season. I thought it was better than the last season.
I agree.
Yeah, we're on the same page with that. Yeah, it was definitely stronger than last season, which I thought was fine, but like it did feel pretty weak.
They haven't had a bad season, but they've had some seasons that have been a little bit weaker than others, and this one felt a lot more interesting than the last season did. I think they just had a stronger narrative this season.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You had Guillermo finally turning into a vampire. Yes. Throughout the course of the entire season, turning into a vampire.
Oh yes. Yeah, the way they did that was, like, brilliant. Keeping Guillermo like a quasi-vampire until the last episode of the season. Mm-hmm. And then his time as, like, a full-on vampire is, like, very, very short-lived.
Yeah, definitely. And they had a lot of fun with exploring the aspects of his weird slow change and like the side effects and the other little things. Laszlo being like the scientist trying to figure out why he's not changing quickly and like all the little like tests with his sweat and his blood. Just brilliant throughout the whole thing.
And making
really
like the hybrid creatures with like Guillermo's DNA and random animals.
That was really funny. I love the sunscreen made from his sweat. And then he goes
to the beach. That's fantastic. I love the fact that we spend like the whole season wondering why Guillermo can't fully transform, and then like the last episode, the answer is so simple. It's because he hasn't fed on human blood.
Yeah.
That was it. Nandor figures that out instantly, by the way. Like nobody else even comes to that realization, least of all Laszlo.
One of the best things about this entire series is just the idea that, like, vampires are just out of touch and stupid, kind of, you know? Like, they're so separated themselves from humanity that they just don't, like, understand the most basic things anymore.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And they have these little stupid traits. I love when they were doing the test and they were saying, like, what makes a vampire? And they were, like, saying all these kind of random things, and one of them was, you know, like, if you drop a bunch of rice, they can't do anything until they count every grain. And they're like, that's preposterous. And then Guillermo drops the rice and they're immediately sitting there counting every grain.
Guillermo drops the rice and then Laszlo's like, yeah, I'm not compelled to pick that up. And Nandor's like, yeah, me neither. So, and it's like, see, total myth. And then they're like, okay, but before, like, we're just going to, and then they start picking it up. Yeah.
Going through each individual grain,
yeah. And then like Nandor, like the whole thing like about jumping and like flying into space. He's like, oh, once I flew into space. And Laszlo's like, I call bullshit. You know? And then, like, he does it.
Yeah. But it was clearly the first time he'd done it. Like, he was bullshitting before, but he actually was able to do it.
Yeah, he actually was able to do it. Yeah. Like, that was great. Yeah, like the season is just, like, littered with those moments. The whole episode, the Colin Robinson focused episode where, like, he can't drain anybody because he's suddenly too interesting.
Because he got the black eye? Yeah.
Yeah, he got the black eye, but then the story around that is, like, the most interesting thing, and then, like, everything that happens to him in the entire episode is, like, interesting. And he's literally, like, dying because he can't make himself, like, boring.
Oh, it's like he got his foot run over, like, when he was trying to cross the street, and everyone's like, oh shit, he got his foot run over. Then the guy, like, the driver, like, comes back, and it's John Slattery from Mad Men.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh, it's John Slattery! Yeah. It just kept getting more and more interesting, and then, like, they tried to feed on John Slattery as he's driving the car away, but Slattery became obsessed with, like, his accent.
Yes.
And, like, the tiny, like, little aspects and minutiae.
It's like, oh yeah, like, I study accents. Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, I don't know if that's part of a region or if it's just you, but you have these weird little pauses, and he's, like, just obsessed into detail about him instead of being bored.
Oh yeah, like, absolutely. And then the episode with, like, the Energy Vampire Council.
That's cool. That's kind of a throwback to the end of season 1 where they had, like, the Council of Vampires and you had, like,
Yes.
all these different people. And part of that is the Council of Energy Vampires. And I don't know if it's supposed to be the actual actors like it was in the other one, but the characters have the same name as the actors. So,
okay.
The leader of the Council of Energy Vampires is Martha, and that's played by Martha Kelly, who's an actress. She was in the show Baskets with Zach Galifianakis.
Oh, okay.
She's been in some other stuff. She has that very, like, low energy tone, like that. She always has that. That's, like, a trait of the actress. And then Hannibal Buress, who's a comedian.
Yeah.
He was playing a character named Hannibal on the Energy Council. So I'm not sure if they were trying to do the same kind of thing that they did with the Energy Council.
I don't know, but
Wesley Snipes, you know?
that was such a great bit, though. Like, the reason we brought you here is, ding! Oh man, that's just fun. And then the other guy's like, okay, what OS are you using? It just goes on like that. It's like the other woman's like trying to speak in the microphone, but like her voice is too soft. He's like, speak louder.
Obnoxious energy vampire traits that.
Yes, yeah.
It was funny, just that all came about because they brought Evie back into the equation.
Yes, which was great to get Evie back.
Yeah.
It was like an emotional vampire.
Yeah. Just feeds off of emotions, and we'd had that episode with her before that was really great, and having her come back and, you know, like, as Colin Robinson's running for, like, office, and, you know, she's, like, standing up and giving secrets about their marriage and all these, like, emotional things.
Yeah.
That was really good. Even though that stuff was good, this was probably one of the weakest seasons for Colin Robinson's character.
Yeah, I
last
think
season was kind of like all about him.
Yeah, last season was literally all about Colin Robinson. Like, he only had these 2 episodes. He's had some great moments in the other episodes, too.
Oh, when they're booby trapping the house, yeah.
Yeah, when they're booby trapping the house. Or, like, when Naja finds out Guillermo's secret. Or, like, Colin Robinson acts like he's interested in learning it, and then is like, nah, I don't care, and walks away. Or, like, in the last episode, Nandor gives Guillermo the human blood, and Guillermo's, like, fully transforming, and he takes the glass of blood and, like, chucks it and smashes it, and he's like, oh, what do we do next? Like, in a dramatic, and Colin Robinson just casually says, well, you can sweep that up.
So I want to talk about another episode. I'm going to lead off our discussion of that episode by saying, yes, very good, thank you.
Oh, yes. The Laszlo episode, which I guess wasn't, like, really about Laszlo, but that was one of the running themes of it was, it started as a Laszlo episode. It turned into something else.
Unless they did the roast of Laszlo.
Yeah, they did the roast, and that brought the Baron back into it. And that this is great because, like, suddenly this is no longer about Laszlo, this is about Guillermo and the Baron now. Because the guide slips, you know, to the Baron that Guillermo was the one who burned him, like, in the first place.
Yeah. Not only that, but also that he's got Van Helsing blood.
Yes. And that sends the Baron on, like, a murderous vengeance spree out to get Guillermo, you know? And then, like, after he learns that, like, he gets up there, and the way, like, he starts, like, roasting, like, everybody there, like, he's like, oh, this isn't what vampires do. We've become weak. We've even let humans at this roast. Except you, Sean, you're cool. Like, he said something like, except you, Sean, you're a good hang. Like,
yeah. I think it's just hilarious how, like, Sean's become, like, this, like, favorite of all the vampires.
Right, yeah.
And he's just, like, a normal guy. He's not, like...
Yeah, he's not, like, anything special, you know, yeah. But yeah, like, I love that. I love, like, this is one of the few instances where you get to see, like, the Baron just, like, display exactly how powerful he is. It's talked about previously, but we never actually got to see him, like, in full-on action. You know, where, like, he's just throwing cars with, like, a flick of his wrist at Guillermo.
Yeah, it's a really fun episode, as a lot of the ones are in this season.
And then that's the way, like, Guillermo and the Baron come to terms, and then Guillermo, like, fries him again, accidentally. But this time he's okay with it, because now, like, his appearance, like, scares his neighbors and stuff, and it makes him feel more like a vampire than he did when he, like, looked normal.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's so great.
Let's talk about the season finale,
yes.
Exit interview, in which at the end of the last episode before that, Guillermo had finally admitted to Nandor that he was a vampire now, that he was turned. And that sends Nandor into a rage, and that starts the
actually happens at the end of like the previous episode 9, A Weekend at Morgan Manor, which was one of the weakest episodes of the season, but I mean, it did set up episode 10.
It still had some fun parts. It had the Laszlo fencing was fun.
Yes, I love that scene. That was great. All the stuff about the guide, that was comparatively weak.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, exit interview, like Nandor makes his vow that he's going to kill Guillermo and then possibly himself.
I love that's always just and possibly myself.
Yeah.
We got another cameo from an actor with Patton Oswalt playing himself.
Patton Oswalt, who Nandor confuses for Guillermo because he's hanging out outside of a Panera Bread and he just assaults him walking in because Nandor is like, oh yeah, Panera Bread is the place where Guillermo's going to go. And I love Patton Oswalt is just how you know it's this one? There's a bunch of Panera Breads in the city. It's really funny.
And then his character, Patton Oswalt, dies. Because Nandor gets upset that he questioned his vendetta against Guillermo and suggested that he try to get along with Guillermo. And then immediately after killing him, he's like, but maybe he has a plan.
Oh yeah, I love it because Nandor goes and he makes up with Guillermo, and he does that because he murdered Patton Oswalt.
Yeah. It's funny, this is, I think, the second actor cameo they've done in this show where they killed off the actor who was playing themselves.
Yes.
I think, maybe there's been more, but last season they did it with Sal Vulcano, who's one of the Impractical Jokers.
Yes.
And he was on the show and then they killed him. But this time it was Patton Oswalt.
Yeah.
They're killing off all these great actors. What's going on?
Yeah, they're killing off our best comedians. What the hell? But I love it because Nandor's at Guillermo's mother's apartment and Nandor takes Guillermo aside. He's like, I realized recently how painful it is to lose a friend.
What did you think about the kind of back to stasis ending they did, or back to the status quo, I should say, ending they did with Guillermo being turned back into a human, kind of negating a lot of the point of this whole season? It's still funny, and it carries on the relationship, and it's going to change, I guess, Guillermo's relationship with the vampires going forward, now knowing that he doesn't necessarily want to be a vampire anymore. So that could change the dynamic a little bit next season, but it is kind of off that they did a whole season about him becoming a vampire and then end it with him being
one of the things is this illuminates the whole thing of exactly why Nandor didn't want to turn Guillermo. It's because even if Guillermo himself didn't know, Nandor knew and could sense that Guillermo would not be happy as a vampire, and that turned out to be correct.
Of how they did the whole ceremony to make him, unmake him, and it was just kill Derek was the whole solution.
Yeah, because when you kill the vampire that created you, that undoes the whole vampirism thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because, he comes out with a beard, and that means when he turns back into a human, he's aged. All the aging that he did in between getting bitten, that happened. It was, in stasis.
It was about the course of about a month, I think, is what they say.
Yeah, which kind of explains, how immortality works for these vampires. Because, in their vampiric form, they're kind of, in stasis. That's why if the bloodline that turned them were eliminated, if the Baron died, they would die simply because they would age centuries in a minute and no longer be able to live.
Mm-hmm.
Guillermo was only a vampire for a month, so obviously he was not in any mortal danger, which again, Nandor also knew.
It kind of makes you wonder, though, with all the vampires that Guillermo ended up killing.
Yeah.
And throughout the series, since he discovered his Van Helsing blood and stuff, that how many other vampires just aged instantly and died,
Right, yeah. That'd be hilarious. Yeah, you gotta wonder that. Yeah.
He killed 20-something vampires, just a rough guess estimate. And then if each one of those had sired one other vampire, and then maybe from those they each sired another. You're looking at, it's you just have to go down the line. How much of that line is
exponential.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Or when Guillermo accidentally burned the Baron, if he had died, that almost every vampire we've seen on the show is a descendant of that one specific vampire.
Yeah, they would all instantly die.
Yeah. It would just be Colin Robinson. And the sire, I guess, who's like the oldest.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Colin Robinson, because Colin Robinson isn't a vampire. He is like a completely different creature.
Mm-hmm.
And we still don't fully know how energy vampires work.
Yeah. No, that like every 100 years they die and then are like reborn from their chest or something, or
Yeah, like that's part of it.
Very weird. It's kind of, one of the things I like about this show is like all the like vampire logic is just really weird. You know, it's very like old world superstition weird. You know,
it embraces classic vampire like lore and vampire myths and plays that part of it like really straight.
But with like the ridiculous nature of it too, because it's old vampire lore, like the really old vampire lore, like pre-1950s Dracula movie and stuff like that, was very weird. Like the reason garlic was effective, the reason steaks were used, the reason all these things that are common tropes of vampires, the reason why those were used is very like, it's kind of like the same way you look at something like, oh, somebody sneezed, that means a demon was trying to get out of their head. Now we have to drill a hole in their head. Like that, it's kind of like old world, or like when you hear like the old wives' tale like remedies, like, oh, you need to sleep with like an old sock with garlic in it or something under your pillow if you have a cold. Or it's ridiculous, like weird things. Like that's the kind of stuff that What We Do in the Shadows like thrives on when it comes to like vampiric lore. It's not like the more modern version of that same thing. It's that old world weird version.
Yeah, it embraces the weird stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, like it plays it straight. It plays it like true to that. Like it's weird because like it uses that stuff as a source of humor, but it's also like not mocking vampires like as a concept or anything. It just uses it for humor. I don't know. I like it and appreciate that. Most modern vampire stuff likes to point at that stuff and dismiss it and say, oh, you know, that's stupid. Or like have vampires say, oh, why would you think I'd be affected by garlic? You know, like these vampires don't do that. Like the one instance, we already like mentioned it, but the one instance in this episode of the rice thing where they had like the vampires themselves like dismiss it as nonsense, and then in very much practice prove that it's not nonsense, and it made for like a great gag.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that part of what makes it interesting is that there's like a really clear differentiation between vampires and humans in like just their sense of logic, you know, and it doesn't just go to the idea that vampires, having been humans and now vampires, have a deeper understanding of like the way things work and do things. It's like they lose sense of like the regular human logic at the same time.
Yes.
It's like they completely lose sense of that. And so like that's part of the, it's always been the humor behind the show, is just the weird way that the vampires act, you know? Goes back to creepy paper, you know?
Right,
Goes back to
exactly.
all the little weird things that, you know, where it's just common human sense and they just don't get it at all, you know? That kind of aspect is a huge part of the humor of the series, so. Yeah, I think this is good.
I agree.
We got in our finale, we got some more good cameos that were fun. We got to see Wallace again, the Necromancer.
Yeah, we got to see the Necromancer and the zombie.
Yep.
Got his name.
Haley Joel Osment's character, Topher.
Yeah, Topher. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's right.
Because they brought back
the guy they killed like in like season 1, and then like had the Necromancer bring back.
Yeah, because they killed Derek, but then they brought him back as a zombie.
Yes.
And for Derek, I think it's fun because all he really wanted was to be part of a group. Because he's, even as a vampire, he was still just kind of on his own, you know? And you can tell he's kind of like lonely and stuff. And so for him, it's probably even for the better being part of the zombies because he's part of a group now, you know?
100%.
So he seemed to actually be kind of excited about it. We also got a return of the Djinn, which I thought was like a really funny cameo. Because we had that whole thing last season with Nandor like misusing so many wishes, like just very badly using them. And we talked about that and how funny it was. And then here, like, you know, once he realizes that Guillermo doesn't want to be a vampire, he's like, I can fix it. And he pulls out the lamp and you're like, wait a minute, aren't all the wishes used up? And he rubs the lamp, the genie comes out and he's like, the Djinn's like, yeah, you already used up all your wishes. Why are you just carrying me around?
yeah, exactly.
And Nando's like, oh, okay, then get back in the lamp. And he's like, well, can I stretch out my legs? No, just get back in the lamp.
Yeah, it was a great season. Go back to like the status quo thing. I mean, that's what this show does. They do it every season, where they kind of like go back to status quo. Season 3 ended with like everybody splitting up and going like their separate ways And like Nandor discovering baby Colin Robinson and staying behind, and
not Nandor, Laszlo.
Or Laszlo, yeah, Laszlo discovering baby Colin Robinson and staying behind, and then just like wondering, what's that gonna do? But then the first episode of season 4 is like everybody is back in the house, and we only get like a brief summary of like their adventures like overseas. So, that doesn't end up like really like being a plot. And then
I love that Nandor's adventures overseas was basically just being a tourist and like hanging out with another family.
Yes, yeah, that's great. And, it goes back to status quo in a way, except for Colin Robinson's a baby for the entire season. And then that gets resolved. And then we get to this season, Colin Robinson is an adult again, and we're dealing with the next storyline, which is Guillermo, which is now resolved. So, I mean, that seems to be the pattern they go in.
Mm-hmm.
I think what changes or what evolves is the characters' relationships. Mm-hmm. And I think, again, like, even though, like, they didn't keep Guillermo a vampire, they returned it back to his status quo. I do think, like, his relationship with Nandor especially has evolved with this, and we're going to see that play out more next season.
Well, it's interesting because it evolved with, like, everybody, because with Laszlo, he kind of developed the kinship and that Laszlo was trying to help him through the whole thing, and then even with Nadja, they had the hospital episode where Guillermo had broken his leg trying to fly, and she took him to, like, the familiar, it was like a vet.
Yeah.
And they treat it like a vet too. I love it. They're like, I think you should just put him down. She's already like 40, We're going to talk about quality of life. Just put the familiar down. Just like that whole thing. And then when they were going to put down Guillermo because they discovered that, he was a vampire now and everything, and that she didn't know about that or whatever. So they were using that as the reason to put him down. And she like freaked out and was like storming the place to get him out of there. Cause she's like, he's ours, like he's not like, you don't get to decide that kind of thing. Shows that she has a kind of like ownership that she didn't like express before. Like she just didn't care before at all about Guillermo, And this shows like some level of affection.
Yeah, absolutely. So overall, I enjoyed the season. Look forward to next season.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Yeah, same. I'm interested to see what they're going to do with the next season. The biggest change, the thing that like I guess can't go back to status quo, is that now that Guillermo has been a vampire and decided he didn't want to have that, that's going to fundamentally change his relationship. Because it's always been the idea of like him wanting to be a vampire and the other one's always laughing that off like as being ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so now that's aspect of the story is like gone. So it'll be interesting to see what they use as their next kind of gimmick or their next kind of like filter through which they present the next season.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that is it for What We Do in the Shadows Season 5 and for this week's podcast. Next week, we are going to be talking about One Piece. Yes, all 1,073 episodes now. We're going to be talking about just the live action One Piece series, which is 8 episodes long, the first season. So join us for that discussion next week. And if you haven't already, catch up on that. It's up on Netflix. It's a pretty fun series, and we'll talk about it more in depth next week. Thank you everybody for listening. You can follow me on Twitter. I am at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our website at thetotaliscreen.com. If you go to our website and open up the container story for any of the podcast episodes, you will find links in the last paragraph to our SoundCloud page, to our RSS feed, to our Facebook account. Everything is all there. You can check it all out. So please do that. If you want to subscribe to this podcast, you can do so through your podcast client of choice, like Apple Podcasts or Pocket Cast, and the entire backlog of our podcast, as well as other content, is available on our YouTube channel. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotalscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.